Welcome to the flowerschool.com video library. I'm Leanne Kessler, Director of the Floral Design Institute, here to share with you our latest issue. It's on creative mechanics. Sometimes our vases are a little bit difficult to design in, and you're always wondering, how do I get my flowers to stand upright? Especially when something's as shallow as this. How do you make them stay in place? And the cubes, oh, we love them. The bubble bowls, we love them, and the customer does too. But creating a design with stability and good placement of flowers can sometimes be a challenge. And today, we're going to solve that challenge. There are so many options. In the past, you may have seen me use aluminum wire, creating an armature and then setting it down inside. Works great, but takes a bit of time. And then you've seen me use the clear waterproof tape, creating a grid across the top. Again, it works really well. A little bit of time. Maybe you remember me using grasses wound up and then placed inside to create an armature. But today, I want to show you a FloralGrid. It's new to me, and I'm kind of starting to fall in love with it. It's an interesting new plastic cover with the holes, so it gives you that Kinz-on look that you can just place right over the top, and it stays in place and holds your flowers in place perfectly. The FloralGrid comes in a pack of 10, which was just enough to get me hooked. Then, as you're using them, you'll be surprised how many different ways that you'll fall in love with them. They have an adhesive on the inside, so you remove the cover, get it off of there, and I found it's easiest if you just remove one side at a time, leaving the other one still attached. Have the water already in the vessel, and then lay it over the top, adhering it down the sides. And yes, it shows a little bit, but once you get your flowers in there, you won't even notice it. It just disappears. And after I get that side, I go back and peel off the opposite side, letting it come over and adhere down. Now again, it's important that you do the water first. I find that that just works so much better. So like even this little tiny saucer, it can become a wonderful flower vessel by adding water. Then removing one side. I usually do the big side first, laying it over, making sure you get it pretty well centered, then going back, getting the other side, pulling it over, just pressing it down. Last one is the cube. And yes, it's the same size, the same piece that does all three of these. So you don't have to have the perfect vase. If you're like me and not the greatest cook in the whole wide world, or maybe you're like me and you don't cook at all, you know that one of the biggest problems is when you have a recipe and it calls for a certain pan, and if you don't have that pan, oh my gosh, you can't make the recipe. You can't adapt. Well, with this, it adapts to most any shape, most any size. Makes it wonderful. You don't have to worry. Do you have the right container? Every container is the right container. Now comes the easy part. You can just take whatever flowers. Right now I'm loving tulips, and they can be a real fit sometimes, trying to get them to go where you want them to. But now you just slide it right into one of the holes, and it's going to stay put. And if you've taken classes with me in the past, you know that I always talk about the binding point. You'll still have a binding point with your tulips. Everything still crosses, but the grid helps to hold it all in place. You just work in, weaving from one side to the other, feeding it down in. And the further out you come to the side, the more they're going to drape downward. And I find it best if you do work on these outer edges first, saving the center for last. Just like you were designing without the grid, but with the control and convenience. You can see how quickly, I mean, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This will be 8 tulips, and they're all staying right where I want them to be, getting them right down into the water. 9. There's 10 tulips in place. It looks nice and full and lavish. Then I can go back and add some taller ones in through the center. And since I've got the grid here, they'll stand upright without any problem. You can hear it squeaking down in there. Find another nice tall one. Remove the foliage. Make sure there's no sand. And then finding a hole, setting him right down in. So you can take 10 to 20 tulips, make them absolutely stunning without a lot of effort. And there's not any other mechanics to hold it in place. It's just the FloralGrid. Now the cube ends up just as fabulous, done the same way with nothing but tulips. With the FloralGrid, you can use even the most shallow container and the shortest stemmed flowers. Cymbidium orchids oftentimes have a stem less than 2 inches. But if you just take and set it right in the hole, even that itty bitty short stem is secure and stable. So you can use any flower that you may have out in the garden that you think, oh, that's too small, that's too short, it's too delicate. It'll work perfect with the FloralGrid. It's so simple. You could stop here and have a beautiful monobotanical design, or you could add foliage or fillers to accent. For this, even just a few simple Gaelic sleeves, cut short and then tucked into the same holes. Let them create a little bit of a backdrop for the flowers. Really sets them off nicely. Finding the perfect spot to insert down in. You could even give it a cut, and then curl it around itself, just rolling it into a cone and sliding it right down into the center to bring a bit of that green into the design. For the tulips, we could take a little bit of lily grass and just let it drape, following the same line as the blooms, just giving it a cut and then sliding it right down in, letting it drape outward. It doesn't take very much. It's already so beautiful that I'm just adding this to accent, to soften, to add a little bit of movement, but I certainly don't need it as a mechanic to hold things in place. Now you have another mechanic to add to your tool chest. One last hint to get you going with it. When you're working and you put it on the vase, always start from the outer holes first and then work your way in. It works way better and you'll have more control of your stems. So it's just like all the other times that I've taught you where I say start on the outside, come to the center. You do the same thing when you work with the FloralGrid. Then, when you put the flowers together and you need to add water, I said make sure you put the water first. That's the best. But then you're going to need to add water later, and you just need a watering can with a small spout, so you can pour it right through one of the holes down into the vase. Works perfectly. Then, once the flowers have passed and faded, pull them out, and believe it or not, you can just pull this right off the vase, easy, leaving no residue at all, so that the vase is still perfectly fine to use again another time. What a fabulous tool. It's amazing how simple it is, but yet how fabulous and easy it makes designing. For more creative inspiration and fun design ideas, check out our website at flowerschool.com. If you've got questions, concerns, thoughts, and you want to know more about this, feel free to give us a call. Pick up the phone. It's 1-800-819-8089. Email is easier. use my personal email. It's Leanne, Leanne, at FloralDesignInstitute.com. For now, have fun, happy flowering, and do something you love.